Katherine Major, a mother of two, was last seen at the upscale Four Seasons Resort in Teton Village, Wyoming on September 19, 2009. She had allegedly stolen a set of master keys from a maintenance worker who had been working in her room earlier in the week. She then used the keys to break into a spa cabinet at the resort and was caught on video stealing over $700 worth of items from a display cabinet in the spa. The staff of the hotel called the police to report the theft. Katherine admitted to the theft and agreed to pay for the items and leave, and the hotel decided not to press charges against her, but they did ask her to leave the resort property. She appeared embarrassed and went to her hotel room to start packing her belongings. When a police officer went to check on her in her room, 40 minutes later, she was gone. The glass door leading to the outside was open, the safe in the room was ajar, and all of her belongings were left behind, including her wallet, purse, toiletries, $45,000 in cash, and 2 cats. There was also pill bottles, syringes, wigs, gloves, and a rope located in the room. A book was found with the middle section cut out with a tape recorder inside. This led investigators to believe that she may have been having a bipolar episode. Katherine had left a note on the counter addressed to her mother reading, "Please take care of my cats. I have nothing." Her white Jaguar convertible was left in the Four Seasons parking garage. Dogs tracked her scent through the glass doors of her room, across Granite Loop Road, north towards Obsidian Drive, down a hill towards Garnet Drive, and north towards a barn in open fields before they lost the trail. Her sister said that Katherine suffered from bipolar disorder and had attempted suicide multiple times in the past. A search was conducted, but nothing was found to indicate what happened to Katherine. Her family members and investigators now believe that Katherine is no longer alive. However, her body has never been located, and as of today, this case remains unsolved. Kristi Lynn Richardson, who went by the name Chris, went missing in 2014 at the age of 61. Chris was a wealthy businesswoman and owned Richardson Trucking that she and her late husband started in 1979. The trucking company transported oil and gas and was a very lucrative business. Most of the truckers called Chris Mom, and she was known to be a hard worker. When her husband passed away in 2013, she took over the company. The day she went missing on October 6, 2014, it was her daughter's birthday, who lived only a block away from her house. Chris returned home from bringing her daughter a birthday card and visiting with her grandchildren. Her daughter said when she saw her mom, nothing seemed out of the ordinary. Chris was last seen by a neighbor getting her mail from her mailbox at her home at East 24th Street in Casper, Wyoming, and then she was seen pulling her car into the garage. The truckers were required to check in with Chris when arriving to their destinations. At 7:45 that evening, she took a routine call from one of her truck drivers. The next call that came in was around 11 p.m. that night, but it went unanswered. She was expected at work at 7:15 a.m. the next day, and when she didn't show, which was very unlike her, one of her employees tried calling her. When they didn't get an answer, they then called her daughter and son-in-law, who rushed to her home and noticed that her car was still in the garage. Her daughter said immediately she knew something was wrong with her mother. Upon searching the home, they found her purse on the kitchen counter with all of her personal documents in it, such as passport, driver's license, and birth certificate, along with several $100s in cash. Her cell phone was also located on the bed, which was strange because she always kept it with her due to her being on call at all times. It was then that her daughter called the Casper Police Department. None of her vehicles were taken from the home, but the garage door opener she normally kept in her purse was the only thing missing. Her bed sheets had traces of stains that looked like blood or urine. The results of the testing done on the stains has not been released to the public yet. Over the next several days, a large search was conducted, and at one point, a helicopter was sent to search parts of Casper Mountain. A warrant was received to search her office at 6850 West Yellowstone Highway, but it is not known if any clues to her disappearance was found. There is currently a $250,000 reward for anyone giving information leading to the conviction of the person or persons involved in her disappearance. There have been numerous theories touted in her disappearance, but as of today, the case remains unsolved. Amy Bechtel was born in 1972 in Santa Barbara, California. She would later move to Wyoming in 1996, where she would meet and marry a man named Steve Bechtel. They both enjoyed the outdoors, with Steve spending time rock climbing and Amy being an avid runner, amateur photographer, and like Steve, enjoyed rock climbing. She would graduate from the University of Wyoming in 1995. While in college, she was the captain of the cross-country and track teams and hoped to try out for the 2000 Summer Olympics. After college, she continued to compete in regional and national competitions, including the 1996 Boston Marathon. She and Steve settled in an apartment in Lander, Wyoming, a year into their marriage, and in 1997, they purchased their first home in the same town. Around 9:30 a.m. on July 24, 1997, Amy left her apartment to run errands for their newly purchased home. But first, she would teach a children's weightlifting class at a local fitness center. She was then seen at Camera Connection at approximately 2:30 p.m. that afternoon. Employees at the store said she seemed to be in a hurry and looked at her watch several times. She then stopped at the Gallery 331, and the owner noted that Amy once again seemed in a hurry and was repeatedly looking at her watch. This was the last confirmed sighting of her that day. Authorities believe that Amy left the business and drove to the Shoshone National Forest to check the course of an upcoming 10-kilometer run planned by her gym. There's a chance she was seen running along Loop Road because a footprint similar to her sneaker was found there. Sadly, it was destroyed before police could attempt to match it. That evening, when Steve returned home after spending the day with friends, he noticed that Amy was not home, but states that he initially wasn't too concerned. But by 10:30 p.m., when Amy was still not home, he called the police because it was not like her to not come home or call if she was going to be late. Steve and his neighbors would begin searching for Amy, and a few hours later at 1 a.m., the couple's neighbor located her white Toyota Tercel parked along Loop Road in the Wind River Mountains near Shoshone National Park, where she was known to go running. Her keys, sunglasses, and her to-do list for the day were inside the vehicle, but her wallet was missing. On July 26, search and rescue teams using dogs, 2 private helicopters, and at least 100 volunteers searched the area. Investigators initially believed she may have fallen victim to the elements or possibly been attacked by a wild animal. It wasn't long into the investigation when investigators began to turn their focus towards Steve. When investigators searched his journals for possible clues, it was noted that Steve at some point had written about an apparent need for control in their relationship. He had also penned an undated poem that revolved around murdering a person and then hiding the remains. Suspiciously, he had a series of journals describing violence towards women and his wife. He would later claim that the journals consisted of song lyrics he had written for his band, and that they were unrelated to Amy or her disappearance. In 1998, local police stated that Steve was no longer a central suspect in the case, although he had not cooperated with the police. Steve provided an alibi for the time of Amy's disappearance, which was corroborated by friends who agreed they had spent the afternoon with him rock climbing. Even with this information, his lawyers still advised him not to take a polygraph test. In late August 1997, the FBI requested satellite photos from NASA of the area on the day of Amy's disappearance, but the satellite images provided no information. In January 1998, pictures were requested from NASA from the Russian space station Mir, which was believed to have snapped a shot of the area the day Amy disappeared, but the weather had prevented any quality photos that day. A woman who was camping in the Shoshone National Park on the day Amy was last seen told authorities that she witnessed a truck similar to Steve's speeding through the park during the early evening hours. The woman stated that she saw an unidentified blonde-haired woman in the passenger seat. However, it is not known if the incident is related to Amy's case. Phone records showed that Steve made a call from his house at 4:43 p.m., around the same time the witness said she spotted his truck. The Bechtels' home was around a 45-minute drive from the mountain road where Steve's truck was allegedly spotted. Acquaintances of the couple gave conflicting statements about their relationship. Some described it as idyllic, while others stated that Steve was jealous and often belittled Amy, and that her demeanor changed whenever she was around him. Steve maintains his innocence and believes that authorities focused on him due to a lack of suspects and evidence in Amy's disappearance. He was interviewed only once by authorities and refused to speak with them further after he said the questions turned accusatory. Steve remarried several years after Amy vanished and still lives in the house that they purchased days before her disappearance. In June 2003, a Timex Ironman triathlon watch was discovered by a doctor hiking near the Poposia River and was turned in to police. It was noted to be similar to a watch Amy had owned at the time of her disappearance. However, law enforcement was unable to determine whether or not the watch belonged to her. One theory is that a possible suspect in Amy's case is Dale Wayne Eaton, who is presently the only inmate on Wyoming's death row. He was convicted of the 1988 rape and murder of an 18-year-old Lisa Marie Kimmel. Investigators believe Eaton may be the so-called Great Basin Killer, the serial killer whom they think was responsible for the murders of at least 9 women in Colorado, Wyoming, Utah, and Nevada between 1983 and 1997. His brother and sister-in-law claim he was camping in the same area and around the same time Amy went missing. Eaton allegedly attempted to kidnap a family experiencing car trouble a month after Amy went missing. Shannon Breeder, her husband Scott, and their 5-month-old baby Cody were traveling along Interstate 80 when their van broke down. Eaton stopped to offer help and asked Shannon to drive his green 85 Dodge van. When they got in the car, Eaton pulled a gun on the family and told Shannon to drive south into the desert. Instead of driving south, Shannon hit the gas and turned in a circle, which allowed Scott to jump out of one side of the van with the baby, and Shannon jumped out the other side. Scott grabbed Eaton and hit him in the head with the butt of Eaton's rifle. Eaton ended up getting stabbed with his own knife during the struggle and left the scene after the family sped away. Eaton only spent 99 days in jail for the crime and was given 1 to 2 years probation. After the kidnapping attempt, Eaton was convicted of the kidnapping, rape, and murder of Lisa Marie Kimmel in 1988 when she was driving alone from Colorado to Montana. In 2002, DNA evidence finally determined that Eaton abducted Lisa at a remote rest area and killed her. They also found Lisa's car that he had buried and used as a septic tank. He is now serving life in prison for her death, but has refused to discuss Amy's disappearance and has never been charged in any other cases besides Kimmel's. The police don't believe Eaton was involved in Amy's disappearance and believe Eaton's niece, who said unlike his brother and sister-in-law that he was actually visiting her in Colorado when Amy vanished. They instead continue to believe that Steve is the only viable person of interest in the case. In early 1998, Steve appeared on the Geraldo Rivera show with Amy's sisters, Casey and Jenny, who pleaded with him to provide information regarding her disappearance. Steve denied any involvement in his wife's disappearance during the program. Her family continues to search for her, and as of today, this case remains unsolved. Justin Phillip Harris was born August 20th, 1990. When he was a child, his mother Stephanie Sidebottom willingly turned him and his younger sister over to the custody of the state. He sadly went through several failed foster care placements before he was placed in the R.L. Mills home in Casper, Wyoming in the summer of 2003. The R.L. Mills home, which has since closed down in 2011 due to financial issues, was a center for boys with a variety of emotional and behavioral problems in the 100 block of East H Street. On Valentine's Day 2004, 13-year-old Justin was last seen in his room at the group home. The next morning at 7 a.m., workers at the home found his room empty after he failed to show up for breakfast. His bed was found stuffed with clothes, making it appear as if he were still under the covers. His father, Phillip Harris, a truck driver who had fought for custody of him, initially said he believed his son ran away to be with him. He also initially believed that his son was either still in the Casper area or tried to go to Swink, Oklahoma. His father lived in Swink, and Justin had threatened to run away to there before because he wanted to be with his father. He had also repeatedly run away from his various foster homes in the past. However, after a few days passed, Phillip said he thought Justin may not have run away from the group home, but in fact could have become the victim of a crime that the group home tried to cover up. After a few weeks passed, the Casper Police Department polygraphed several people that were close to Justin, including family members, but it led nowhere. In the days immediately following Justin's disappearance, it was reported by the director of the boys' home that Justin was developmentally disabled, functioning at the level of a 6 or 7-year-old. The director also said Justin was taking medication for depression at the time of his disappearance. The staff said he required constant supervision and could not function without his psychiatric medications. However, they stated he had been doing well at the facility and was also succeeding at school. Justin's father denied that Justin suffered from any kind of disability, stating that he was just a shy boy and a straight-A quiet student. He describes him as kind, considerate, lovable, and helpful. He also said that Justin's DNA is being tested against all John Doe bodies found across the country, but there has been no matches. There is very little information in this case, and as of today, it remains unsolved. Virginia Uden was 32 years old when she and her two sons, 10-year-old Reagan and 11-year-old Richard, were last seen in Wyoming. Virginia was divorced from Gerald Uden, and he was the boys' adopted father. On September 12, 1980, they were leaving Virginia's mother's home in the vicinity of the 700 block of North Federal Court in Riverton, Wyoming, at approximately 1:30 p.m. Virginia had told her mom that she was taking the boys to meet Gerald in Pavilion, Wyoming, and then he was going to take the boys bird hunting. It is of note that the boys brought along their own rifle with them. The 1973 Ford Country Squire station wagon they were in that day, which Virginia had borrowed from her mother, was found abandoned and vandalized on October 4, 1980, nearly 1 month after she and her sons had disappeared. It was found in the rugged Dickinson Park area of the Wind River Mountains on the edge of Trout Creek Canyon about 20 miles west of Lander. It appeared as if someone had tried to push the car into the canyon, but it had become lodged between trees. It was then covered with branches that were cut from nearby pine trees. The car also had rags and paper stuffed into the car's gas tank. It appeared someone tried to set it on fire before attempting to push it off the canyon, but was unsuccessful. There was a large amount of blood, which was determined to be Virginia's blood type, found in the front, middle, and rear of the car. DNA testing was not available at this time, and they were only able to test the blood type. A Lander resident said he had seen the vehicle several times in the 2 weeks before law enforcement found it, but he didn't know of the investigation and said the vehicle was not covered in branches when he first noticed it. When Virginia, Reagan, and Richard disappeared, Gerald was remarried to a woman named Alice Louise Uden. Gerald and Alice suspiciously moved to Chadwick, Missouri after the three went missing. Years later, in September 2013, with evidence pointing towards Gerald, he was arrested and charged with their murders. In October 2013, he pled guilty to all 3 murders and provided a detailed account as to what happened. Gerald stated that he picked up Virginia, Richard, and Reagan from 123 Williams Road near Pavilion. He said they drove a short distance before all 4 got out of the vehicle. He then shot all 3 of them with the .22 caliber rifle they were going to use for bird hunting. He admitted the murders were premeditated and said he shot them after they got out of the car at a canal near Pavilion in Fremont County, Wyoming. He said he put the bodies in large drums and dumped them in Fremont Lake, which is approximately 450 feet deep. He was charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder in exchange for his guilty pleas and sentenced to life in prison. He referred to Virginia as a predator and showed no remorse for his actions. Strangely, Alice was also charged with murder and arrested at the same time as Gerald, but for a separate incident. During the investigation of Gerald, it led investigators to also investigate Alice. She was charged with murdering her husband, Ronald Holtz, a U.S. Army veteran, in late 1974 or early 1975 when he was 25 years old. They married in September 1974, and he disappeared sometime after Christmas that year. Alice allegedly told a witness years ago about shooting her husband while he was asleep. She told the same witness that she had hidden his body in a barrel before dumping it in a mine. The police had long suspected Alice murdered Ronald, but did not have enough evidence until his body was found in an abandoned gold mine in August 2013, and then she was tried for murder in 2014. She claimed Ronald was abusive to her, and she shot him to protect her daughter from him. She was convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to 20 years to life in prison. In 2018, Fremont County and state officials dug behind the former home of Gerald under an old hog pen. They stated that they had uncovered new information in the case of Virginia, Richard, and Reagan. The house was located on Williams Road, about 15 miles northwest of Riverton. The dig lasted about 1 week, but they never provided what information led them to dig there. Sadly, nothing of value was found. Neighbors of Gerald and Alice say they raised 2 children, attended church regularly, and lived a good life. Some were having a hard time believing the accusations against them. When they were finally arrested, the couple were in their 70s. Although an arrest in their cases was made, sadly, as of today, the case remains open because the bodies of Virginia, Reagan, and Richard have never been located.